Our story begins with a young man waking up to find his entire sect has vanished. What would you do in his shoes? After transmigrating to this cultivation world, he became a trainee at the prestigious Taizhan sect. But today he realizes the whole place is empty, and a system informs him that a great calamity will devastate the world in 3 years. A cheerful start to his new life, isn't it? Assuming the sect fled early to save themselves, he begins frantically looting their resources to grow stronger. He has no idea, of course, that the entire sect hasn't actually run away, but is trapped in a secret realm right above him. This means the entire Taizhan sect can see his every move. They watch in horror as he breaks into the library, drinking grade 8 spiritual liquid like it's common water. They even see him eating grade 9 pills like candy, much to the collective outrage of the sect elders. But then, they watch him break through his cultivation rank in a single day and effortlessly refine a grade 9 pill. In that moment, the entire sect is stunned. This boy is their only hope. Meanwhile, as he wanders around and realizes the entire sect has truly vanished, he is completely bewildered by the silence. What on earth is happening, he wonders. As he stands there lost in confused thought, a cold, mechanical voice suddenly echoes inside his head. The strongest self-preservation system has successfully bound to him. It warns that in exactly 1,024 days, the world will end. Trillions will perish in the coming disaster, and only a heavenly venerate will have a chance at survival. This system promises to do everything in its power to help him survive. He is stunned, but then a rather cynical thought crosses his mind. He is convinced the others didn't just vanish. They ran away and left him behind. If they were going to flee, they could have at least taken him along. He wasn't even on the bus yet, after all. So he asks the system what its functions are. He warns the system that his natural talent is mediocre at best. If it expects him to carry the load, the system immediately replies that its purpose is to guide him step by step until he becomes an unstoppable powerhouse. Its first task is for him to check in at the sect library. It's a difficult mission, but upon completion, he will receive a 10,000-fold increase in his natural talent. He is shaken. He never expected such an exaggerated reward from the library. It was once a restricted area for an outer disciple like him, but with everyone gone, this task seems like a golden opportunity. He decides there is no difficulty and sets off immediately. Meanwhile, in the endless void high above the Taizhan sect, we find that every disciple and elder is currently trapped. This place, known as the Taizhan Void, is usually a sacred site where disciples go once a decade to seek cultivation opportunities. The leadership brought the students here for training, but just as they prepared to leave, they found the exit had unexpectedly sealed shut. The disciples are still deep in their meditative trances, blissfully unaware of the crisis, but the sect's high-level officials are looking quite grim. The sect leader speaks up to calm the room. She speaks in a low, steady voice, attempting to reassure her panicked subordinates. At her words, everyone looks toward the 4 corners of the Great Dome. There, 3 supreme elders sit cross-legged in the void, working in unison to investigate the seal. These men possess heaven-defying power. Surely, with them on the case, this little malfunction will be resolved in no time. This thought seems to ease the tension among the elders. The sect leader speaks again, noting that while the supreme elders do their part, they should also put their heads together to find a way out. It is then that Elder Shangwan of Tianji Peak is the first to speak. He recalls that not every single person entered the secret realm. One soul was left behind. 3 years ago, Saintess Qiao entered the Dragon's Tooth for a period of secluded nirvana to reach the Zifu realm. She specifically requested that for this opening of the Taizhan Void, she was not to be disturbed. Consequently, she is indeed the only person left guarding the sect. Hearing this, Elder Lu of Tiangong Peak nods with visible relief. You see, the Taizhan Void has a backup activation ritual that can open the gates from the outside. As long as the Saintess finishes her seclusion and finds the sect deserted, her sharp mind will surely deduce that they are trapped. This news brings a wave of hope to the elders, and their faces light up with joy. However, the master of Tianji Peak still looks rather troubled. That's all well and good, he notes, but the Saintess usually meditates for 5 or even 10 years at a time. Since she's aiming for the Zifu realm now, it might be 20 years before she sees the sun again. Naturally, the smiles on the elders' faces instantly freeze. The sect leader ponders this for a long moment before letting out a heavy sigh. Very well, she says, let us at least look at the situation below. Perhaps, by some miracle, the Saintess has already finished. She performs a quick hand seal, casting a spell to make the spatial barriers transparent so they can peer into the world below. Suddenly, an elder points in total confusion. Look there at the outer gate. Hull, why is there someone standing there? Everyone follows her gaze and realizes that, indeed, someone is standing on a distant peak. We see a figure dressed in the robes of a preparatory outer disciple. He walks into a deserted task hall and presents his disciple token to the automated mountain stone monument, siphoning contribution points into his account with reckless abandon. Watching this from above, the elder in charge of the task hall is absolutely livid. He bellows about the sheer audacity of this youth, stealing points while the sect is empty. He wonders if the boy has any shame at all. Even the sect leader is disgusted, noting that such a low-character individual is utterly unworthy of the Taishan sect. Our protagonist, of course, has no idea he's being watched. He simply watches his balance climb higher and higher with a sense of deep satisfaction. Since the whole sect has seemingly vanished, he figures it's all fair game among friends. He tells himself that even if the elders knew, they wouldn't mind. Meanwhile, high above in the Taizhun void, the task hall elder is still hurling insults. He calls the boy's skin thicker than a city wall. He's already taken 100,000 points and shows no sign of stopping. The sect leader turns to the master of the outer peaks, Yanjun, and asks if he recognizes the person below. Yanjun looks closely, and after a moment of realization, he reports that the young man's name is Shiqi. He arrived 6 months ago, after crossing the treacherous Kanjing Sea. Impressed by his unwavering determination, Yanjun had followed sect rules and admitted him. The sect leader simply waves her hand in dismissal. She isn't interested in his determination, not when his moral character is so clearly lacking. To her, it's simple. He saw the sect was empty and immediately began looting resources for himself. It is a disappointing display. Since they are trapped in the secret realm, she can't punish him yet, but she vows that once they are out, he'll face 300 lashes. Yanjun bows and retreats, while the master of Chuangong Peak watches Shiqi with a disappointed sigh. Down below, our hero has successfully pocketed 1,000,000 contribution points. He shakes his token happily, thinking this should last him quite a while before heading to the harbor. He uses his token to activate a flying vessel, and within half an hour, he reaches the majestic Chuangong Peak. The Peak Master takes one look at this and realizes Shiqi is heading for the Hidden Sutra Pavilion. He smirks, thinking the boy is overestimating his own abilities. You see, while the first floor can be opened with points, the higher levels of the pavilion require genuine talent to enter. The truly divine techniques are all kept on those upper floors. He remembers how Saintess Qiao once used her Wanxia physique to reach them. The Zhaoyuan Dao body allowed one to reach the 8th floor, rivaling the Holy Sun, Li Jingyun. But this little thief's talent is so abysmal that he would likely struggle with even the simplest techniques on the first floor. The elder's words are blunt, but they are the simple truth. The Hidden Sutra Pavilion is filled with countless arrays and techniques, where one's own innate talent determines how high they can climb. The laws set by the ancestor precisely match a cultivator's aptitude. The 9th floor hasn't been reached in 1,000,000 years. While the elders are lost in their reflections, we see Shiqi land at the pavilion. He taps his token against the stone tablet, and 10,000 points vanish. As the points are deducted, a system chime rings in his ear. It informs him that he has arrived, and the introductory task is complete. With the reward issued, a new task appears. Practice any technique to enter the body-tempering realm. To be honest, it sounds simple enough. Upon completion, he will receive a small success voucher, which allows any technique to reach the small success stage within a single day. Shiqi looks skeptical. He wonders if the reward was actually issued, as he doesn't feel any different. Is this really the 10,000-fold talent boost? He asks the system if it's playing a joke, but receiving no answer, he decides to test it himself. He picks up a random technique and realizes he understands the content at a single glance. Even the complex core concepts become crystal clear in an instant. He is overjoyed to find his talent has truly improved. Choosing a body-tempering technique is vital for building a solid foundation. With his talent boosted 10,000 times, he naturally wants the best. The first floor techniques are now beneath him. He has only one thought. He's going up. Meanwhile, in the Taizhun void, the elders are still passing judgment. We see them watch Shiqi enter the pavilion and wonder how many floors he can manage. The Chuangong Peak elder snorts, remarking that if the building had a basement, that's likely where the boy would end up. The other elders find this quite amusing. But as they laugh, the figure on the first floor begins to move, immediately catching everyone's attention. They wonder what he's doing. Could he actually be trying to reach the second floor? They grumble that this thief, having stolen points, is now greedy for high-grade techniques. They are certain he will never be able to climb those stairs in his entire lifetime. Yes, they are quite convinced of his failure. Yet, before the words even leave their mouths, they see the figure ascending to the second floor without the slightest hint of resistance. Those who were so certain he only belonged in the basement are feeling a bit embarrassed seeing this, so they collectively shut their mouths in unison. Meanwhile, Shiqi has no idea about the drama unfolding above. He finds the second floor techniques quite ordinary. Even the best are only at the black grade level. It seems he must keep climbing, and so he ascends once more. As he moves, the elders above all furrow their brows. But while they are still wondering, we see him step onto the third floor. At this, everyone's interest is piqued, and their previous prejudices have mostly vanished. The sect leader begins to consider that perhaps human nature is inherently good. If this boy truly has talent, his death sentence might just be commuted. After some proper punishment and guidance, he could be reformed. But just as the sect leader is thinking this, he notices Shiqi climbing even higher. He reaches the 6th floor without any resistance whatsoever. This leaves everyone completely shocked, as many elders only reached the 6th floor themselves in their youth. The Tianji Peak elder looks at Su Wuxuan, the Chuangong master. Junior brother Su, could the pavilion's arrays have failed? Su Wuxuan immediately shakes his head. It's impossible. The pavilion was built by the ancestor, Tai Daozuan, himself. It hasn't been interfered with like the Taizhun void, so the arrays couldn't have failed. Hearing this, the Tianji Peak elder raises an eyebrow and asks how he explains the boy reaching the 6th floor. To be honest, the Chuangong master doesn't have an answer for that. After all, Shurqi practiced for half a year without even touching the body-tempering realm, yet he can reach the 6th floor. It's quite puzzling. They feel that such talent couldn't be hidden. Even with minimal effort, he should have mastered the basics. If he had a special constitution, he might even enter the Tao automatically. The situation is truly illogical, but the sect leader is no longer worried about that. Instead, he starts to feel a sense of appreciation for the boy's talent. With such potential, as long as he is taught well, his future will be limitless. Becoming a true disciple is almost a certainty at this point. As for the stolen contribution points, he was just a lowly mortal who didn't know of the sect's existence, which is understandable. From a mortal's perspective, when sect members suddenly disappear, their belongings become ownerless. Taking them for personal use is, in his eyes, quite excusable. Even the Chuangong master is stroking his beard now, noting that Shurqi possesses a resilient nature and the poise of a true gentleman. We see that even when faced with a suddenly empty sect, the boy remained calm, a clear sign of a noble spirit, to be sure. He believes such a talent is like unpolished jade. With the right guidance, he will surely become a pillar of the sect's future. Knowing how busy his fellow elders are, Su Wuxuan offers to ease their burden by taking Shurqi as his personal disciple. At this, the true disciples can't help but feel a wave of envy. After all, in the Taizhan sect, most never even see the master. Outer disciples have no hope of meeting him, and even inner disciples only get to hear him lecture once a month. A few top-tier disciples might get a private moment, but that's nothing compared to the prestige of being a personal apprentice. While the disciples are jealous, the other elders are simply rolling their eyes. That old fox certainly changed his tune quickly. Then, the Tiangong Peak Master, Lu Daozha, steps forward and turns towards Su Wuxuan with a very knowing look. He remarks that his junior brother has a keen eye, but claims he also sees that the boy's character and talent are top tier. However, he has one small objection. He points out how hard Su has worked for the sect all these years. Between the daily lectures and the private lessons for the true disciples, Su is already stretched quite thin. To be honest, he's exhausted. The other elders have noticed his sacrifices, even if they don't always say it out loud. It's a touching sentiment, really. He argues that if Su takes on even more work now, it would be a slap in the face to the rest of them. They simply can't allow it. And so, he insists that he cannot allow Su to take on this burden. Su should simply step aside and rest for once. Lu graciously offers to handle the boy's education himself. Yes, it's a very selfless gesture, isn't it? Su Wuxuan is moved to tears by the first half of the speech, only to realize by the end that his brother is trying to steal his prize. Not about to let this opportunity slip away, Su squeezes out a few tears of his own, thanking Lu for his thousands of years of care. He claims it's finally time to repay that kindness, but argues that the Tiangong Peak specialties are far too demanding for a beginner. Refining and crafting require very specific, rare talents, whereas Shurqi's gifts are better suited for general cultivation. He argues that refining and crafting are already difficult enough. If the boy turned out to be less than brilliant, it would only waste more of his brother's precious time. Since the Tiangong Peak is already so busy, adding the task of teaching a new disciple seems almost cruel. He asks if he's really expected to just stand by and watch his brother be worked to the point of exhaustion. Naturally, he claims that taking on the boy is his own unavoidable responsibility. Lu Daozha, of course, hears the hidden meaning behind those words. Anger flares in his heart as he realizes Su Wuxuan has abandoned all dignity just to steal a disciple. He is just about to gather his thoughts and continue the argument when a woman's voice suddenly cuts in. She asks her two junior brothers why they are fighting over such a small matter. She suggests they stop this bickering before it ruins the harmony of the sect. At this, everyone turns their gaze toward the source of the voice. We see a beautiful woman in purple robes approaching. This is Yu Xiao, the master of Sanjin Peak. Lu Daozha and Su Wuxuan immediately bow respectfully, greeting her as senior sister Yu. Seeing this, the Tai sect leader sighs with relief, thinking that Yu is finally being the sensible one, stepping in to stop these two old men at the critical moment. Otherwise, in front of so many disciples, the whole scene would be quite unseemly. He is just beginning to feel comforted when, a second later, he hears Yu Xiao smiling as she looks at the two of them. She suggests that Shurqi should simply be placed at her Sanjin Peak. She mentions she's been looking for a personal disciple and was worried she wouldn't find a suitable candidate. At these words, the sect leader's eyelids twitch and the two elders freeze in place. Since their senior sister has joined the fray, the other elders begin to feel the same temptation. Meanwhile, the true disciples start whispering among themselves. Even Elder Yu wants to take Shurqi as her disciple. It's incredible. 3 elders are now fighting over him, and the others look like they might join in at any moment. They wonder if Shurqi is truly that exceptional. After all, Sanjin Peak is the top peak for martial techniques, and the name Taiyi Sanjin is famous throughout all of Zhongzhou. One disciple grumbles that he has high-level talent too, so why wasn't he chosen as a personal apprentice? To be honest, these things depend on both talent and timing. One could say the boy's luck is simply extraordinary. Indeed, because everyone is currently trapped within the secret realm, they are forced to focus all their attention on him. At this moment, even his smallest actions are infinitely magnified, making it easy to catch Elder Yu's eye. Back with the elders, we see that once Su Wuxuan and Lu Daojia finally quiet down, they begin signaling each other with their eyes, trying to get the other to speak up. But despite all the winking, neither dares to challenge their senior sister. Just as, while the two continue to hesitate and the other elders weigh whether to intervene, an inner sect deacon suddenly arrives with a report from the secret realm. The other disciples inside are growing restless because they cannot leave. After a moment's thought, the sect leader decides to tell them the truth. He even makes the barriers of the secret realm transparent, allowing the disciples to see what is happening outside to distract them. And so, under the watchful gaze of thousands, the figure who had been reading manuals on the 6th floor finally begins to move once more. We see him shake his head, seemingly dissatisfied with the techniques on this level, before looking up at the stairs leading to the 7th floor. He lifts his leg and begins to climb. At this sight, the crowd from the Tai sect erupts in excitement. You see, the gap between the 6th floor and the 7th floor is a massive divide, with a staggering difference in the required talent. Most peak masters and elders only have the aptitude for the 6th floor. In fact, only the Tai sect leader and Yu Xiao, the master of Cangjin Peak, have ever set foot on that 7th level. Everyone confirms that Shi possesses a mere mortal body, and in the entire history of the sect, no mortal has ever reached the 7th floor. As Shangwan Siyuan, the master of Tianji Peak, recovers his composure, he suggests that since this is Shi's first time, he is likely just testing his limits. He assumes the boy will soon realize the difficulty and retreat. The others nod in agreement. Not long after, Shangwan Siyuan wears an "I told you so" expression as Shi reaches the middle of the staircase. If his calculations are correct, the boy should be struggling just to stay upright, let alone take another step. The others quickly chime in, agreeing with their junior brother's logic. Meanwhile, halfway up those very stairs, Shi is inwardly cursing whoever designed this place. To be honest, he is utterly exhausted. He can't believe there are 80 steps between the 6th and 7th floors. He wonders how a 200-meter building can have only 9 floors. Until he realizes the builder wasted all that space on stairs. He thinks the architect must have been mad. Of course, the great Tai Daozuan had designed this for elite cultivators, never imagining a mortal would reach such heights. After a brief rest, Shi finally continues his ascent. With only 20 steps left, he has no idea that his progress is once again leaving the elders in the sky completely speechless. His face flushing, Shangwan Siyuan coughs and admits that Shi is far more resilient than they imagined. However, he maintains that reaching the 7th floor is still impossible. There is simply no precedent for it. According to his calculations, Shi's physical limits have clearly been reached. We see him gasping for air as his very bones scream in protest. Even his internal organs must be enduring immense strain, making it seem as though he won't be able to move again. The elders once again rush to agree with Shangwan Siyuan's keen insight, convinced the boy has finally hit his limit. They conclude that while Shi might not reach the 7th floor, his talent is already among the sect's elite. But just as the elders are deep in their discussion, a true disciple suddenly shouts that Shi is moving. We watch as he suddenly dashes upward, his silhouette blurring as he reaches the top and steps onto the 7th floor. A heavy silence falls over the crowd, as it takes a long time for anyone to regain their composure. While Yu Zhao's determination to claim him grows, the Tai sect leader is practically beaming with excitement at this historic feat. A mortal reaching the 7th floor is truly unprecedented, a moment that adds a peerless genius to their sect's history. He declares that the boy deserves a spot among the top 10 disciples, telling the others to stop their bickering. The sect leader announces that once they are free, Shi will join his personal lineage. To be honest, the elders are stunned. They can't believe their own leader is joining the scramble for a disciple, especially since the sect has a very strict rule. Traditionally, the leader only trains the saint or saintess to avoid potential succession conflicts or divided loyalties. And yet, here is the Tai sect leader, ready to break centuries of tradition just to take Shi as his own. The elders are shocked, yes, but deep down they understand. The boy has shattered every known limit of a mortal body. Yu Xiao glares at the sect leader with visible irritation, making the powerful man's face turn red with a bit of embarrassment. Knowing he's overstepping his bounds, the leader avoids Yu Xiao's gaze until Shangwan Siyuan finally decides to speak up. He urges his senior brother to reconsider, pointing out that there is absolutely no precedent for such an exception. He argues that this could undermine the status of the saint and saintess, a sentiment the other elders quickly echo. But amidst the chorus of protests, sect leader Peng Qianyang speaks with absolute certainty, telling them not to worry about his decision. He explains that once Shi is his disciple, he will hand over the full authority of the sect leader to senior sister Yu Xiao. As his voice fades, the crowd falls into a stunned silence, while Yu Xiao watches him with a mocking, knowing expression. While the others are confused, sect leader Ping's heart skips a beat. He hadn't expected his clever plan to be seen through so easily. We look back to when they were both candidates for leadership, and Yu Xiao had voluntarily stepped aside to let him take the role. Peng Xianyang has held the position for 1,300 years now, but the heavy burden of sect affairs has caused his cultivation to stagnate. To be honest, he's had quite enough of being the leader and hoped to use this ceremony as an excuse to finally step down. But his intentions are clear to Yu Xiao, even if the other elders are still in a fog, struggling to grasp the situation. To the disciples, it looks like a grand sacrifice, and as the news reaches the outer sect, the rumors grow even more absurd. Even the outer sect elders are puzzled, wondering if their leader would truly resign just for the sake of one talented boy. We return to the 7th floor of the library, where we find Shi standing calmly with his hands behind his back before a bookshelf. He examines the jade slips before him. On this floor, the techniques are all earth grade or higher, stored in this refined, spiritual form. Normally, a disciple is strictly permitted to choose only one technique at a time, as noted by the golden inscriptions nearby. Since there is no one here to stop him, he could take them all, though, to be honest, these earth grade techniques don't interest him. With his talent boosted 10,000 times over, his potential is limitless, and he knows he must reach the heavenly venerable realm soon. Only then will he survive the coming catastrophe, so these mediocre techniques simply won't suffice for his grand ambitions. He can't help but sigh, reflecting on the past 6 months he spent as a lowly outer disciple with a truly pitiful status. Back then, no one had bothered to explain the different cultivation realms to him, leaving him quite in the dark about their true meaning. He had no real concept of the world he was in until now, having finally realized just how high the ceiling for power truly is. In this world of overwhelming power, humanity has used sheer will and physical mastery to forge a unique system of cultivation. This system is divided into 3 major stages, each separated by bottlenecks that are notoriously difficult for any warrior to overcome. The first stage is the crucial moment for a mortal to shed their old self, and once the second stage is mastered, one can aim for the ancient Tao-fixing realm. In that realm, experts live as long as the heavens, and heavenly venerables are the rarest of geniuses, a fact he reflected on once more. Recalling the knowledge from the books, he finally understood just how ridiculous the system's requirements truly were. To be honest, the most urgent matter now was choosing a suitable technique to finally enter that body-tempering realm. Since the people of the Tai sect had all vanished, he decided that if he was going to learn something, it had to be the best. With his heart full of anticipation for a top-tier technique, we see him climb all the way to the 8th floor in a single breath. The space here is vast, yet the jade slips are few, so he begins to examine them for a technique worth his time. He has no idea, of course, that his every move is currently causing a total uproar throughout the entire sect. The disciples can hardly believe their eyes. Shi has reached the 8th floor of the library, a feat impossible for a mortal. If this vision of the lower realm hadn't been conjured by the sect leader himself, many would suspect they were being played for fools. It's no wonder the sect leader was willing to resign. What once seemed impulsive now looks like genius. Yes, quite clever indeed. One elder muses that he was far too shallow, realizing the boy truly has the potential to challenge the Holy Sun for his title. While the crowd cheers, the Holy Sun's world turns dark. If they both share the same talent, his own position is in jeopardy. But he quickly reassures himself. Shi may be talented, but he is still far too young and inexperienced to be a real threat. After all, the boy hasn't even begun his cultivation, while the Holy Sun is already at the peak of the God-severing realm. Between his seniority and his vast network of connections, he sees no reason why a newcomer should ever take his place. Besides, Shi only has that strange mortal body, while his own tiny holy body is a force of nature, rare and mysterious, as one might expect. He had joined the Tai sect specifically for its deep heritage, eventually finding a low-grade heaven-rank technique on this very floor. However, only after practicing the earthly shadow technique did he learn it was merely a simplified version of something far greater. The original version, the Qingming dragon transformation, is hidden away on the 9th floor, a place he was never meant to reach. Shi might have reached the 8th floor, but he was still 3 full realms behind the Holy Sun. He wouldn't be a threat to his position at all. Once Li Zhengyun realized this, his confidence returned, and he struck a rather profound pose. He scanned the sect below with a mysterious air, while we see Shi examining the techniques on this floor, all of them glowing with soft light. As they shimmered, he recalled what he'd learned downstairs, that heaven-rank techniques are not only profound, but possess a unique quality. They are unique in this world. Legend says that when such a technique is born, it carries a fragment of its creator's will deep within the jade. Over time, they develop a spirit of their own, and the very best techniques will even choose their own masters, which is exactly what we see here. This display of light was the technique's spirit manifesting. After a quick look around, he was drawn to the brightest jade slip and picked it up. He examined it closely, noting that while the earthly shadow technique was impressive, he simply wasn't interested in soul-based cultivation. With that, he casually tossed it aside, unaware that this simple gesture was making the Holy Sun's eyelid twitch with pure irritation. The technique he took such pride in was apparently worthless to this mortal. No matter how calm he tried to look, he was starting to fume. Deep down, he cursed the boy as a lowborn bumpkin who couldn't even recognize the value of the earthly shadow technique. He decided to wait and see what the boy would actually choose. Meanwhile, Shurchi began to stroll around the 8th floor with his hands behind his back. Finding no techniques that caught his eye, he turned his attention to the miscellaneous records, which seemed far more interesting to him. These scrolls contained basic information about the world and its various factions, not very helpful for cultivation, perhaps, but excellent for broadening his horizons. Having finished his reading, he headed toward the stairs. He was certain the best techniques were kept on the top floor, the sect's true heart. That was where the foundation of countless generations lay. With a light step, he began to climb, unaware that this simple act was about to cause a scene. The crowd watching from above was absolutely stunned. They wondered how he could possibly keep climbing, or if they were all sharing the same hallucination. Shurchi was actually heading for the 9th floor, taking the steps 2 at a time. Some even wondered if the library's detection arrays had simply broken down. A million years ago, a peerless genius with the Chaos God body had managed to reach the 9th floor, a feat that had become legend. But for a mere mortal like Shurchi to attempt the same? After the initial uproar, the entire sect fell into a heavy, expectant silence. Every eye was fixed on the figure climbing the stairs, and even the 3 great elders couldn't help but divert a sliver of their attention. Under the watchful gaze of the entire sect, we see Shurchi easily step onto the 9th floor. Almost at the same time, the atmosphere shifted. The entire Taijinshu erupted in an uproar. He had actually made it. A mere mortal had reached the top floor of the library. To be honest, witnessing something that hasn't happened in a million years is quite a shock. Shurchi truly defied all common logic. It seemed certain that once the sect escaped its current crisis, he would become the favorite of every elder, a position that would make anyone envious. But just as the sect was singing his praises, Su Wuxuan, the master of Chuangong Peak, stepped forward with a rather grim expression. He bowed to Sect Master Peng and reported that a lower-level elder from his peak had just sent a message to confess a serious crime. Apparently, a spirit stone in one of the library's arrays had failed some time ago, and the elder had secretly pocketed the high-grade replacement. By using an inferior stone instead, he might have caused the talent detection array to malfunction entirely. As you can imagine, the scene fell silent. The elders looked at Su Wuxuan in shock, until the elder of Tiangong Peak finally spoke up to challenge such a claim. He argued that the array was built by the sect founder himself and was far too divine to simply break down like a common toy. It even contained a fragment of the founder's own law. Su Wuxuan simply cupped his hands toward the sky in a respectful, if slightly defensive, gesture. He claimed he wouldn't dream of questioning the founder, but reminded everyone that even the strongest gods eventually succumb to the passage of time. Nothing in this world lasts forever, and after 10 million years, even the most powerful array rules might begin to wither. He suggested that a few missing spirit stones were all it took to break the system. Hearing this, the crowd began to reconsider the situation. After all, Shurchi had been a disciple for 6 months without even basic body tempering. Yet here, he was on the 9th floor. If the array was indeed broken, then his impossible feat suddenly had a very mundane explanation. It all made sense now. The Holy Sun felt a wave of relief wash over him. It was all just a misunderstanding, and his Taiyin holy body was still the best. The sect master immediately ordered the culprit to be sent to the law enforcement hall for punishment. Just as everyone felt embarrassed by this misunderstanding, Yu Xiao turned to the sect master with a knowing smile. Yu Xiao declared that since the others were having second thoughts, he would be the one to take Shurchi as a disciple. Everyone was stunned, but it didn't take long for the sect master to realize that Shurchi's talent was far from a fabrication. Su Wuxuan quickly pressed him, asking if he was certain the array hadn't failed, prompting the sect master to let out a heavy sigh. He admitted he couldn't be certain, but noted that they had all been far too obsessed with outward appearances today. To be honest, one doesn't need a detection array when the boy's performance on the 7th and 8th floors was already proof enough. It was a moment of sudden clarity for everyone, as they instinctively recalled what had happened just moments ago. They remembered how the heaven-rank techniques had practically bowed in recognition the moment Shurchi stepped onto the 8th floor. Naturally, the elders immediately changed their tune. Yes, quite the turnaround, praising the heavens that this wasn't just a massive mistake. They now claimed they had seen his peerless aura from the start, declaring Shurchi the supreme Qilin son of their sect. Watching this, the core disciples could only stare in disbelief. One minute he's a fraud, the next he's a genius. It was almost comical. They just wanted a straight answer, while our newly dubbed Qilin son calmly began to observe the 9th floor. We see that this highest level has no bookshelves, only dozens of jade slips floating silently in the air. As Shurchi took his first step, the slips initially dipped in respect before erupting in light, vying for his attention. The elders were left speechless. It turns out the old saying about techniques choosing their masters wasn't an exaggeration after all. The Holy Sun watched as the Qingming dragon art followed Shirqi like a loyal pet, though Shirqi didn't give it a second glance. This sight made the Holy Sun grit his teeth in frustration, while the sect master marveled at the boy's infinite potential. He realized Shirqi's future was truly boundless, and in that moment, he could almost see a legend being born. Several different training paths immediately began to form in his mind as he considered the boy's bright future. With a determined look, the sect master stepped forward and bowed toward the three great elders. He formally announced that given Shirqi's staggering talent, he wished to grant him the prestigious sequence status of the sect. This status would place him above even the Holy Son and Holy Daughter, ensuring the sect would pour every resource into his cultivation. These words sent a shockwave through the hall, leaving the elders to sigh as they realized the sect master had indeed made his choice. We should note that the sect sequence was an ancient wartime system, where promising disciples were forced to compete against one another. The ultimate victor would be crowned the first sequence, standing above all others and commanding the full wealth of the sect. In more peaceful times, this brutal path was replaced by the gentler twin saint system, but restarting it now meant something significant. It was clear that he intended to make Shirqi the true successor, a realization that made the Holy Sun visibly anxious. However, the three great elders remained silent, offering no immediate response to this bold proposal. Meanwhile, Shirqi was already making his next move. As he prepared to choose a technique, the system's voice suddenly chimed in. It congratulated him for reaching the top of the pavilion and breaking his limits, rewarding him with a rare one-time fusion voucher. Shirqi was momentarily stunned, but he soon understood that this voucher would allow him to combine multiple techniques into something greater. Of course, the success rate for such a fusion would decrease as the rank of the techniques involved became higher. In this world, every heaven-rank technique is a unique treasure. To fuse them, one must risk destroying the original scrolls entirely. If the process were to fail, the knowledge would be lost forever, which is why fusing such high-level arts is often considered a crime. He felt a flicker of hesitation, but the system quickly urged him to trust its power, reminding him of the coming catastrophe. Everything was being done to ensure he could survive the great disaster looming just over 1,000 days away. Even with his incredible talent, simply mastering heaven-rank arts wouldn't be enough to reach the heavenly sovereign realm in time. To truly save himself, he would need to create a technique that surpassed the highest known ranks of this world. His heart raced at the thought. Since the path had been laid out for him, he saw no reason to turn back now. Drawing on the fusion methods he had studied earlier on the second floor, he began the process with focused determination. In an instant, every heaven-rank technique on the floor began rushing toward the swirling white vortex forming right before his eyes. A notification rings in his ear. He has successfully used the one-time fusion voucher. What he doesn't know is that at this moment, above his head, inside the Tai void, all the elders are looking down with fury, and the sect master's eyes are filled with murderous intent. Then, Elder Yu from the discipline hall steps forward, his expression grim as he addresses the assembly. An elder from Baichao Peak adds his voice in cold agreement, clearly sharing the sentiment that a line has been crossed. Hearing this, Yu Xiao sighs softly, feeling a touch of regret as he watches 37 heaven-rank techniques being fused together. The success rate for such a feat is practically zero. It seems we are watching our top genius lose any chance of recovery. The inner and outer disciples are also in an uproar, denouncing him for daring to refine every top-tier technique in the library. The Taizhen sect is a community. After all, since he joined to learn, he should show gratitude instead of causing such destruction. Some lament that they ever admired Shirqi, feeling as though they were blind to his true nature. To be honest, the crowd is quite fickle. They call Shirqi a timeless sinner of the cultivation world, while the Holy Sun listens to the curses, feeling a bit dazed by the sudden shift. One moment Shirqi was the sect master's favored successor, and the next, he's a pariah, all while the Holy Sun did absolutely nothing. He had somehow turned a total defeat into a comeback without lifting a finger, and a smirk begins to play on his lips. But just as he regains his confidence, he remembers the previous twists. He wonders if this is another false alarm and decides to be cautious. He chooses to observe a bit longer, looking down at the sect where Shirqi is still holding his hands out in a meditative pose. As the 37 technique jade slips are mostly refined, the Holy Sun finally begins to relax, feeling the danger has passed. He looks toward the sect master again, only to see a massive, blurry face of spiritual energy manifesting high in the sky. Its powerful aura blankets the entire world, making even the sect master look small before the giant face utters a single, booming word. It seems the Supreme Elder is truly enraged, meaning Shirqi is surely doomed, or so the Holy Sun thinks as he gloats. Suddenly, a burst of brilliant spiritual energy erupts from the library, followed by endless rays of light piercing through the clouds. Auspicious clouds surround the 9th floor, leaving everyone in the Taizhen sect stunned as the sect master looks on in total confusion. The figure below, a mere mortal, has actually succeeded in fusing 37 top-tier heaven-rank techniques. As he stands there dazed, a steady voice suddenly rings out, noting that the birth of such a divine technique is bound to create a miracle. Much like a ninth-grade holy pill or a miraculous cure, it draws the favor of the heavens, which send thousands of rays of auspicious light to celebrate. Looking up, we see the giant face in the sky transform into a streak of light and land instantly, manifesting as a white-haired man. This is the Supreme Elder, Lanzhong, and the sect master quickly bows to greet him. Lanzhong waves him off, telling him there's no need for such formalities. Before his gaze drifts downward, he notes that this boy is truly extraordinary. Despite having no cultivation or experience with these 37 techniques, he somehow knows the heart of every single one. In fact, even before the fusion is finished, he has already triggered a heavenly celebration. Could a peerless genius truly exist? Hearing this, the sect master feels a stir of curiosity and whispers a question. Could the boy be a reincarnated master or perhaps possessed by an old monster? Lanzhong thinks for a moment and shakes his head. He explains that if a soul's path remains, there is no need for possession. And if the path is gone, there is no chance for reincarnation. This boy is simply a unique case, and there is no need for alarm. Hearing this exchange, the elders and disciples are left reeling. It seems our Shurchi is far more remarkable than they thought. He had committed what seemed like a capital offense, yet he actually made the fusion work. Even the Supreme Elder has come down to confirm that he isn't some ancient spirit or a reincarnated powerhouse, but a genuine talent who succeeded on his own. It is, to be honest, quite mind-boggling. Just then, Elder Yu, who had been so eager for punishment, asks if they are still going to kill Shurchi. The sect master frowns and rebukes him sharply, telling him to stop such nonsense. Shurchi is now the sect's greatest genius and their hope for the future. He asks when the Supreme Elder ever mentioned anything about an execution. Elder Yu freezes, his mouth hanging open. He wants to argue, but Elder Shangwan quickly steps in to stop him. Elder Shangwan pulls Elder Yu back by the sleeve, retreating with a wary look toward Supreme Elder Lanzhong. Lanzhong remains composed, not sparing a single glance for the other elders as he focuses on the scripture pavilion. As the fusion completes, a brand new technique, sword control, emerges from the white mist before Shurchi. Lanzhong looks solemn. A moment later, his voice booms, echoing through every corner of the Taizhinshu sect. The announcement leaves every disciple, from the inner to the outer gates, utterly speechless before the silence breaks into chaos. We hear the crowd erupt. Many feel foolish for ever doubting Shurchi's ability to fuse 37 top-tier techniques. They realize senior brother Shur was simply playing a high-stakes game, though he certainly gave them a proper fright. Trading an entire floor of techniques for one superior version is a bold move, but the significance is undeniable. After all, the world's first technique to surpass the heaven rank has just been born right here in our own Tai sect. Meanwhile, Shurchi gazes at the floating sword control manual with pure delight, realizing his gamble has finally paid off. The fusion process was remarkably effective. It felt as though he had mastered all 37 original techniques in an instant. With his system providing the foundation, this new peak heaven rank technique has officially entered the world, combining 37 different strengths. It is all-encompassing, yet uniquely tailored to his specific needs, meaning, quite conveniently, that only he can actually master it. As the celestial visions fade, he reaches out to claim the technique, reflecting on how quickly his original plans have changed. He had initially just wanted a simple body tempering method, but the tower's reward system had much grander ideas in mind. To be honest, he wasn't usually a fan of these multi-realm systematic techniques, fearing their power might be spread too thin. His plan was to swap techniques as he leveled up, but this new creation seems to be a different beast entirely. This peak heaven rank art covers every stage of cultivation, built upon the solid foundation of those 37 elite techniques. It pushes the potential of every single realm to its absolute limit, proving itself superior to any single stage manual. For instance, it absorbs the essence of the Great Sun technique, a divine art specifically designed for perfecting one's physical form. Indeed, the raw strength of his arm at the first stage of body tempering would likely shatter all records. Once he reached the 10th stage, his physical body would surely reach a terrifying level of power. Thinking of this, Shurchi excitedly prepared to receive the technique's information, only to find the manual emitting bursts of soft light as it connected directly to his sea of consciousness. As he received the first pulse of information, he couldn't help but smile. It seemed the technique was asking him for a name. He stroked his chin, lost in thought. Since it was a fusion of hundreds of techniques, it needed something grand. It was a supreme art that gathered every possible advantage into one. As the saying goes, from the infinite, all things are born. And so he decided to call it the Wuji Daozong, the infinite Dao treasury. He grabbed the manual and pressed it against his forehead. Under the guidance of the spirit within the scroll, the entire contents of the Wuji Daozong flowed into his mind like a river. A few breaths later, the transfer was complete, and he snapped his eyes open, utterly stunned by what he had found. To be honest, this technique was almost too powerful. It possessed 3 unique traits. First, it was attribute-less, meaning it could perfectly resolve any internal energy conflicts. Second, it had no cultivation bottlenecks. The technique would run itself automatically, allowing him to cultivate every second of every day. It could even optimize its own energy paths. Third, it had no weaknesses in its abilities, allowing him to combine attack, defense, and movement at will. He could master almost anything through it. Beyond these traits, the manual had even evolved 3 exclusive divine abilities: the Allah's Return, the Great Image Form, and the Dao Eye Warning. As he reviewed the descriptions in his mind, his eyes burned with a newfound passion. However, a moment later, he shook his head with a sigh. Unfortunately, these 3 divine abilities were still out of reach until he broke through the Nirvana realm. For now, the most important task was entering the body tempering stage. With that in mind, he immediately struck a pose and began his physical training. With every breath, we see the spiritual energy circulating through his meridians. His muscles tightened, and his bones began to creak and pop with the effort. While he focused entirely on his training, the elders of the Tai sect finally began to calm down. Supreme Elder Lanzhong vanished from the sky, returning to his task of inspecting the secret realm's exit. Meanwhile, Palace Master Su Wuxuan couldn't help but offer his opinion. He remarked that Shih-Chi had a real talent for naming things, claiming the title had the flair of a supreme divine art. Very tasteful, indeed. The others were already used to how quickly he changed his tune. Elder Lu Daojia simply nodded in agreement, noting that Shih-Chi was truly a heaven-sent talent. With his peerless talent and the Wuji Daozong technique, the elders wonder if he can reach the body tempering stage in under 3 days. Hearing this, the elders joined the discussion with great interest. Reaching that stage in 3 days is a top-tier achievement in the cultivation world. More than that, one notes, throughout history, fewer than 100 people did it in 10 days and fewer than 10 in 5. As for doing it in under 3 days, only one person has ever managed that, the peerless genius from the Eastern Wilderness 2 million years ago. Unfortunately, though he dominated his era and reached the peak of his power, he ultimately failed his final tribulation and perished. A tragic end, to be sure. This was Shangwan Siyuan of Tianji Peak speaking, who then asked about the sect's own best records in recent years. Su Wuxuan nodded, recalling that the current Holy Son and Holy Daughter hold the best marks. The Holy Son took over 8 days. The Holy Daughter, thanks to her unique constitution, managed it in only 6. At this point, he turned to the Holy Son, Li Jingyun. Zhengyun, how long do you think your 10th junior brother will take? As he spoke, every eye in the room turned toward the Holy Son. Li Jingyun hesitated for a long moment before answering. He acknowledged that Shih-Chi's talent was indeed peerless. He didn't want to guess blindly, but noted that martial intent depends as much on comprehension as it does on raw talent. Since Shih-Chi is practicing a top-tier heaven-grade technique, the mental demands are much higher, which might delay his entry into the body tempering stage. In his view, taking more than 3 days would be perfectly normal. The elders nodded, satisfied that his logic matched their own. After all, a mortal body lacks the natural shortcuts of a special constitution. Still, they felt 10 days was a safe bet. Elder Yu Shao found himself admiring Shih-Chi even more, his desire to take the boy as a disciple growing stronger by the second. He couldn't help but wonder how many days this mortal genius would actually need. Meanwhile, we see Shih-Chi deep in his cultivation. He was fully immersed in the Wuji Daozong. With the system's 10,000-fold talent boost, his comprehension was, to put it mildly, superhuman. By the 5th repetition, he no longer needed to consciously guide his breath. As the night passed, and he took his first breath of dawn, his physical form suddenly tightened. A familiar notification chimed in his mind, announcing he had reached the body tempering stage. The tutorial task was complete, and he had earned a level 5 small success card. Deep down, he felt a surge of genuine excitement. Even more excited than Shih-Chi himself are the elders watching from above, who have just witnessed a mortal reach body tempering. It took him only 6 hours, a feat that leaves sect leader Tai muttering in a daze about shattered historical records. He recalls that it took him 17 full days to reach that same stage back in his own youth, which was considered impressive. For the first time, the sect leader realizes the staggering gap that can exist between geniuses, and he offers a self-deprecating laugh. He's just glad he was born 3,000 years earlier. Otherwise, his pride might never have recovered from the comparison. However, several elders are now frowning. Shih-Chi has officially begun his journey, but they are still unable to escape their confinement. They worry about who will guide him, as body tempering is the crucial first step that determines a cultivator's ultimate height. There are countless auxiliary methods for this stage, and using them incorrectly or not at all can lead to vastly different results. They hope to break free soon so the boy doesn't end up practicing blindly and wasting his immense potential. Their only hope for now is that the Wuji Daozong technique is as miraculous as the legends suggest. If he follows it step by step, even without external help, he should still be able to achieve something quite extraordinary. Unlike the worried elders, Shih-Chi feels revitalized after his night of cultivation, his spirit and body in perfect harmony. We see him testing his limbs with restless excitement. After 6 months, he has finally stepped beyond the mortal realm. He curiously clenches his fists, wondering where his strength stands compared to those who practice the Great Sun Furnace technique. Normally, that technique grants 9,000 pounds of force, or even 10,000 if the cultivator possesses a special constitution. To be honest, reaching 10,000 pounds should be a walk in the park with a technique as advanced as his. After a moment of reflection, he decides to head to the martial hall to see exactly what his new body can do. But before that, he plans to use his system reward, the small success card, to master a new martial skill instantly. In this world, power is a blend of techniques and divine abilities, with skills serving as the true foundation of combat. Since his technique requires fighting beasts to temper the body, the sect's myriad beast peak will be his next destination. We see him pacing the 9th floor of the scripture pavilion, carefully browsing through top-tier heaven-grade skills like the Tai floating dust palm. The palm technique is fluid and elegant, but it doesn't quite feel like the right fit for his particular style and temperament. Another technique looks promising, but fighting beasts with just his fingers seems a bit risky, so he keeps it as a backup for now. Finally, we see him stop before a floating jade slip that seems entirely indifferent to the world around it, radiating a cold, spiritual aura. He reads the description for the 5 Peaks True Form Punch, a heaven-grade skill that channels the very souls of the Earth's great mountains. Each strike is said to carry the weight of a mountain, heavy enough to suppress all things with peerless, crushing force. It warns that the technique requires a massive foundation, specifically the ability to exert 10,000 pounds of force at the first stage. Deep down, he's absolutely thrilled. This fierce, unstoppable style feels as though it were tailor-made just for him. The 5 sacred peaks of this world are far more majestic than anything he remembers, teeming with spiritual veins and ancient power. The technique claims to suppress all of creation at its peak, which, to be honest, is likely a bit of a marketing exaggeration. Still, its potential is undeniable, as the true power of any martial skill is always tied to the strength of the one wielding it. While a novice might only cause a scratch, a true master could theoretically sink an entire continent with a single punch. Growing more excited by the second, he presses the jade slip to his forehead and lets the complex techniques flood into his mind. A little later, he sets the slip aside with a satisfied smile, though he isn't in any rush to use his small success card just yet. Instead, he boards a flying boat and heads straight for the martial hall on Propagation Peak to see what he's truly capable of. Meanwhile, the elders of the Tai sect are already frowning, wondering why on earth he would choose such a notoriously difficult technique. The 5 Peaks True Form Punch has gathered dust for millions of years, and very few have ever managed to make sense of it. Only the 32nd sect leader, blessed with the peerless tyrant body, ever managed to master its more advanced stages. He was invincible in his day, but even for a genius like him, the difficulty of this particular punch was simply staggering. In fact, that legendary leader admitted before the end that he never truly reached the stage of absolute perfection with it. In his previous life, he spent far too much time trying to master the 5 Peaks True Form Punch, which ultimately cost him his chance at further advancement. He never quite reached the god-transcending realm, and one has to wonder if sect leader Song ever regretted choosing such a demanding technique before his end. But whatever the old leader thought is in the past. The real question now is why Shichi would choose this particular path for himself. After all, he is just beginning his journey with a mortal body, and a simpler mysterious grade technique would have been a much more sensible choice. The elders firmly believe that cultivation requires balance, and seeing a promising talent like him head down a dead end makes them incredibly anxious. This is especially true for the Tai sect leader, who is currently watching with a heavy heart, knowing that while Shichi is talented, he is still possessing a standard mortal body. He won't have the natural advantages of a tyrant body to help him endure the strain of the 5 Peaks technique. It is a path destined for hardship, and nearby, Yu Shao clenches his fists, unable to bear the thought of the young man wasting his potential. He turns to the elders, hoping for a solution, as they all look on with a mix of concern and deep-seated frustration. Whether through divine arts or unorthodox methods, their wisdom far exceeds that of any ordinary disciple, yet they find themselves currently at a loss. They wonder if there is any way to reach through the Tai void to the lower realm. Perhaps a signal to warn him would be better than this helpless waiting. As the elders sink into deep thought, we return to Shichi, the very person causing all this worry, as he arrives at the martial hall. This hall is designed specifically for testing the raw strength of those in the body refining stage, and he carefully scans the various heavy equipment available. He eventually settles on a stone lock weighing 10,000 pounds, takes a steadying breath, and prepares to lift the massive weight over his head. He expected a struggle, but to his complete surprise, the weight feels incredibly light. It seems he had vastly underestimated his own growing power. After setting it down, he moves on to even heavier weights, eventually discovering that he can lift an 18,000-pound stone ball with just one arm. It turns out the Wuji Dao scripture is every bit as powerful as the legends say, granting him immense strength at only the first stage of body refining. In this world, the higher your starting strength, the greater the rewards later on, as every breakthrough enhances the physical body in every possible way. By the time he reaches the peak of body refining, these cumulative gains will result in a truly staggering leap in power, a thought that makes him smile. This is the script he was meant to have, and he wonders how the sect would have reacted to such strength had they not already evacuated. He felt he deserved to be a core disciple, but with the great calamity only 3 years away, his priority is simply survival. With that in mind, he heads toward the building near the training grounds. A full day and night of intense study and cultivation has left him completely drained. He needs sleep before he can even think about mastering the 5 Peaks True Form Punch. His plan is simple. Once he reaches basic mastery, he'll head to Longevity Peak to test his strength against actual demonic beasts. He finds a bed inside the building and immediately drifts off, while elsewhere, the news of his 18,000-pound lift is causing a stir. The disciples are in an absolute frenzy. How could anyone lift that much weight with a single hand? They wonder. It's common knowledge that a mortal body lacks special enhancements. Yet here he is, showing off such raw, overwhelming power. At just the first level of body refining, his strength is terrifying. Some even suspect he's been receiving secret training from the Great Elder. He's likely shattered the sect record, proving that true talent isn't reserved solely for the elite heirs of the great sacred lands. To the outer disciples, Shichi has become a hero, a living example of what they might achieve. But as night falls, and our protagonist sleeps, the crowd watching from the Tai void begins to grow a little restless. The senior disciples are used to the long, quiet grind of cultivation, but the younger ones are starting to feel the weight of the silence. They turn to idle gossip to pass the time, though the conversation inevitably returns to the incredible events of the previous day. It's still hard to process. A divine vision triggered by a mortal? And why? They ask. Was Shichi left behind while they were all moved here? They suspect he has no idea where they've gone. To him, it must seem like the entire sect simply vanished into thin air while he napped. It's a strange situation, really. He has the entire sect to himself, with every resource at his fingertips and no one to tell him no. Given that the Great Elder named him as Sequence, he could probably dismantle the main hall and the sect leader would just smile. He'd likely be praised for his physical strength, but then a darker thought arises. What if they are stuck in this void forever? Shichi would be utterly alone in that massive complex. No friends, no rivals, not even a stray pet to keep him company. A few months might be a vacation, but decades of that would drive a man insane. Elder Waifeng, hearing this, just rolls his eyes. If those young disciples really were stuck, it's hard to say how Shichi would feel, but the first ones to go stir-crazy would definitely be us. Then again, with 3 great elders present, an exit is surely guaranteed. Still, he glances toward the depths of the realm, feeling a strange, lingering unease. Deep down, he felt a sense of dread. Meanwhile, at the center of the Tai void, the sect's high-ranking leaders aren't worried about escaping, but about something else. They are desperate to reach Shichi and tell him not to waste his time on the 5 Peaks True Form Punch. Su Wuxuan paces back and forth, frowning deeply. Spiritual transmissions fail, and celestial warnings are ignored. For half the night, the 12 Peak Elders have been brainstorming, yet nothing seems to work. To be honest, none of their plans have been particularly reliable. The barrier laws of the Tai void are simply too powerful for them to bypass. The wall between this void and reality is something their current cultivation level cannot pierce. Yu Xiao pulls a petal-adorned long sword from her storage ring and sighs. It's a pity her hidden flower sword was brought inside with her. Otherwise, she might have used it to grab Shichi's attention from afar. Hearing this, Zuichimo, the master of soul-suppressing peak, has a sudden realization. He calls out to his fellow disciples, inspired by Yu Xiao's words. He wonders if the puppet beasts left behind in the sect could still be controlled. At this suggestion, the eyes of everyone in the room begin to light up. Puppet mastery requires a fragment of one's divine sense to be embedded in the machine, and this specific technique, as it happens, has a very high priority. It is comparable to a blood-bound weapon. Even across vast distances, the connection remains. The elder of Tiangong Peak looks at him, unable to wait. He urges Old Zhua to try and see if he can reconnect with that pile of scrap metal, before Zuichimo can even get angry. Su Wuxuan frowns at Lu Daojia, asking why he must keep pointing out Brother Chimo's flaws. He says it's enough to know it's a pile of scrap metal without saying it out loud. The sect leader, finally, tells them both to be quiet. Zuichimo, his face tight with focus, bows to the sect leader and announces that he is ready to begin. The sect leader nods with great expectation. He tells him to proceed, noting that there is no shame in failure. Zuichimo nods solemnly, preparing himself for the mental strain. He presses his fingers together, activating his divine technique. The elders watch as he begins to struggle, his face growing paler by the second. After a long time, Zuichimo releases the technique, gasping for air and wiping his brow. Seeing this, Yu Xiao steps forward to ask for news. Zuichimo simply shakes his head. The barrier laws created by the founder are simply too strong for him to pierce. The barrier is too strong. His divine sense simply cannot pierce through. Hearing this, a wave of disappointment washes over the group, but Tsuchimo quickly adds a however. He explains that he did manage to establish a faint connection with one specific puppet, a tiny, palm-sized creature. It was a little Cheonchi, a failed experiment from his early days that he'd tossed into a warehouse, while his connection to all the high-level puppets was severed by the Tai Void's laws, perhaps because they required too much mental energy. This little defective beast had such low requirements that the link actually held. Of course, being a failure, it cannot release any spiritual power or techniques. There isn't much it can actually do. Hearing this, the Tai sect leader dismisses the concern with a casual wave of his hand. As long as he can control its movement, that is enough. We only need to find Shichi and then have the puppet beast ride out the situation on the ground. In the sect leader's eyes, whether Tsuchimo's creation can fight or speak is completely irrelevant. The sect grounds are safe, after all, so Shichi isn't in any real danger. If the little puppet can just move, that is victory enough. Once it tracks down Shichi and scribbles the warning on the ground, the boy will naturally understand the situation. To be honest, the other elders seem to agree with this simple logic. Yu Xiao smiles playfully and urges Tsuchimo to get started. She's already imagining Shichi giving up on that punch to study her own technique. It is a heaven-rank art, after all. But before she can finish her pitch, the Tai sect leader immediately interjects, asking what kind of nonsense she is talking about. In his mind, once they reach Shichi, the priority should be a technique that allows for total physical regeneration even from the brink of death. Yu Xiao, however, isn't backing down. She asks if sect leader Peng really wants a once-in-a-million-years genius to focus on surviving a beating rather than learning how to fight. As the two of them begin to bicker, Tsuchimo watches with a look of growing hesitation. Finally, he takes a step forward. He begs them to stop fighting, admitting sheepishly that his little puppet beast can't actually write a single word. As he speaks, and his voice falls, the sect leader's brow furrows in confusion. Yu Xiao is equally baffled. If it's a beast with paws, why on earth can't it write? Tsuchimo rubs his hands together, looking rather embarrassed. It turns out, when he built it, he gave the creature 4 legs that were more like stumps. He designed it as a sphere, as his fellow disciples would soon see. We watch as he activates a spell to connect his sense to the warehouse on the lower peaks. Under the stunned gaze of the elders, a round iron ball rolls out of a small door. It rolls out and reveals its true form in the moonlight. It is a palm-sized, rust-covered metal Cheonchi. To be honest, it looks more like a discarded toy than a legendary creature of myth. It waddles along with a tail like a tattered broom. Tsuchimo, his face turning red, points at the little beast. He notes it can barely walk, let alone write. The group is stunned, and Shangwan Siyuan can't help but complain. He asks what kind of junk this is, wondering if it will kill enemies with laughter. Tsuchimo retorts unhappily. He reminds them it's a failed experiment, but insists it's quite charming. As the two of them begin to argue, the sect leader immediately silences them. He asks how exactly this little creature is supposed to reach Shichi. Tsuchimo quickly explains to his senior brother that while the internal arrays of this puppet beast are almost completely paralyzed, its wings still function, giving it a limited ability to fly. Hearing this, the sect leader's eyes light up. He is secretly relieved that the puppet's original form was a Cheonchi. Without wings, they would have reached a dead end. He quickly instructs Tsuchimo to try and activate it. If it works, he wants it to fly toward the transmission peak. As for how it will communicate with Shichi, they will have to take it one step at a time. Tsuchimo nods and sends out a thread of divine sense. We see the little puppet immediately flap its tattered wings and take flight, its round body wobbling in the air. Watching it sway, the elders can't help but feel anxious. Tsuchimo quickly assures them there is no need to worry. Although it was a failure, the materials are top-tier Starfall flowing light iron. Its body is incredibly sturdy. It can even withstand a direct blow. After hearing this, the group finally relaxes as the morning sun rises high in the sky. Shichi finally wakes up and begins to plan his next steps for cultivation while washing up. We see Shichi walk into the Yenwu training grounds, stretching his limbs to warm up before deciding to try the Mei True Form Fist without relying on the system. But before he can even strike a pose, he spots a round iron lump in the distant sky, wobbling and swaying. As it flies toward him, seeing the iron ball getting closer, he immediately raises his leg and gives it a powerful kick, sending the ball flying back the way it came. Meanwhile, the elders above the sect are left speechless. They had been staring at the little puppet beast as it flew all night. It finally reached the transmission peak, only to be kicked away before it could even make contact. The sect leader is the first to react, urgently commanding them to make it fly back immediately, ensuring that before Shichi starts practicing the Mei True Form Fist, they stop him. Tsuchimo nods through gritted teeth as he controls the scrap metal Cheonchi. After flying all night, the divine sense connection has grown weak and unstable, and most fatally, he cannot increase his divine sense, or it will be blocked by the Tai True Void barrier, breaking the connection entirely. Now he can only carefully feel for the faint responses, trying to make the puppet beast fly back to the transmission peak. On the other side, Shichi rubs his chin, looking quite puzzled. What on earth was that? It seemed like a puppet beast, he thinks, recalling the feeling of the kick. And after that brief close-up look, he feels his guess is right. Puppet beasts are quite rare in other places. But in the Tai True sect, they aren't too rare. To be honest, when he first joined the sect, he saw one at the outer peak. It was a massive bird made entirely of steel. Several core disciples were standing on it. He didn't know what kind of puppet it was then, until he heard some outer disciples chatting. He marveled at the various cultivation methods of this world for a long time. He remembers puppet beasts are made with souls, having spirituality like the flying swords in the library. Now, the whole sect has evacuated, so the puppets should be gone. But that iron lump was left behind. Could it be? It missed the bus, like him, and missed the main group? Perhaps it found him and came to huddle for warmth. He is still wondering, but doesn't think too much. It's just a puppet beast, after all. He shakes his head and takes his stance. Our story continues as Shichi prepares to train, but then, out of the corner of his eye, he spots a hunk of steel appearing on the steps. It wobbles and rolls toward him, eventually bumping into his leg with enough force to make him stumble. Its four metallic feet kick wildly in the air, while its broom-like tail thumps against the ground. Shichi blinks, reaching down to tap the little beast's head. He fires off 3 questions. Back again, old friend. Do you have a purpose? And do you know what actually happened to the sect? He even asks if it can understand him. At that very moment, the watching elders are overcome with excitement, and the sect leader grabs Zuichimo's arm, urgently telling him to make the puppet respond. Zuichimo immediately tries to activate his divine sense. But the more he rushes, the more unstable the connection becomes. As the little beast remains motionless below, Shichi's brows begin to furrow in suspicion. Zuichimo is sweating bullets again, prompting Yushao to ask if nodding is really that difficult. Zuichimo looks quite miserable, explaining that he wants to, but after flying all night, the puppet's internal stability has been completely exhausted, making most commands hit or miss. Hearing this, Lu Daojia can't hide his look of pure disdain. He asks if this piece of junk is now completely useless, but Zuichimo immediately steps up to defend his creation. What do you mean? Without my little Xiongqi, we wouldn't have any contact with Shichi at all. Besides, it's not like it can't do anything. I just tried. And while the command to nod is too difficult right now, it can still shake its head. Seeing Shichi start to lose interest and prepare to set the little Xiongqi back down, the sect leader shouts for them to just make it shake its head. The elders are shocked. They worry this will only negate the doubts Shichi has finally started to form. But before the sect leader can explain, Yushao steps in to clarify that the leader is right. If nodding is impossible, shaking will have to do, because the priority is making sure Shichi realizes this little beast possesses intelligence and isn't just an ordinary puppet. If Shichi decides to keep it by his side because of this, they will eventually have the chance to guide him toward the truth. Hearing this, the realization finally dawns on the group. At this point, whether it nods or shakes its head doesn't really matter. Any response at all is what counts. Zuichimo quickly sends out the command. And just as Shichi is about to toss this strange puppet beast aside, he sees the little metal head begin to slowly shake. He finds it hard to believe. Shichi stares at the little steel beast in disbelief. It really can understand him. Since it shook its head, it must mean that it's an abandoned object, just like him, with no idea what happened to the sect. It likely saw a disciple and thought that following him would offer some security. It was, in his eyes, a rather pitiful creature. This time, he doesn't kick the little Xiongqi away. After all, besides himself, this clumsy puppet is the only living thing left in the sect. He decides to keep it as a companion. He places it back on the ground, telling the little fellow it can stay, but it must move aside while he trains. He wouldn't want it to get hurt, after all. The metal Xiongqi stands there in a daze, seemingly processing the instruction. High above in the secret realm, our elders finally breathe a collective sigh of relief. The puppet has successfully stayed by Shichi's side. This means their only channel of communication remains open. Zuichimo, still focusing on his technique, asks what their next move should be. It's a question that leaves everyone stumped. With a broken puppet that can't speak, write, or even nod, how can they warn Shichi not to practice the 5 Peaks True Form Fist? Suddenly, Shangguan Siyuan, the master of Tianji Peak, steps forward with a plan. He suggests that Zuichimo could control the little beast to move in specific patterns, tracing out the message with its entire body. While it might look a bit strange at first, he's confident that Shichi is clever enough to eventually see the pattern. The elders applaud the idea, and Zuichimo begins his work. Just as Shichi prepares his stance, he sees the rusty little puppet suddenly starts scurrying around as if it's lost its mind. Because its feet are rounded, it looks more like it's rolling and crawling. Shichi watches with a look of pure confusion, and back in the realm, the elders are equally horrified. Shangguan Siyuan frowns deeply. He asks Oldswell what on earth he's doing, as no one could possibly recognize that as writing. Zuichimo immediately snaps back. He argues that the Xiongqi is already unstable, and writing so many words is a monumental task. To be honest, he's doing his best. Shangguan Siyuan is ready to argue, but a sharp glare from the sect leader silences him. The leader then asks what the message is supposed to be. Zuichimo explains the message. The sect is safe. Do not practice the 5 Peaks True Form Fist. The sect leader shakes his head. It's far too long. He tells him to simplify it to just 4 words. Do not practice. Zuichimo immediately executes the order, but the little scrap metal Cheonchi was already mid-stroke with a different message. It switches words halfway through. Shichi initially assumed the puppet was just malfunctioning, but as he watches, he senses a rhythm. He begins to observe the movement path more closely. He wonders if it's actually writing, though the content remains a mystery. High above, the elders are overcome with excitement. They believe the ancestors are watching over them because the boy has noticed. Shichi is proving to be remarkably sharp. If he's already guessed the puppet is writing, they're sure he can decipher the message. They tell Zuichimo that it's his time to shine, urging him not to let his focus waver while he draws. Zuichimo is feeling the weight of the world right now. If the puppet's legs were stable, this task might actually be simple. But the joints are far too loose. The poor thing can't even nod, yet here it is trying to perform calligraphy. The 4 words, "do not practice," are coming out incredibly crooked. We can only hope Shichi can interpret this abstract performance. Back on the ground, Shichi continues to track the little puppet's erratic movements with intense focus. After a long moment, he manages to recognize a pattern. It really is writing, even if the strokes are a bit messy. He thinks he sees the word must. Back in the secret realm, the elders erupt into cheers once again. They are stunned by his intuition. To be honest, even knowing the answer, the elders struggle to see the word in those scribbles. One elder admits he can't see a single correct stroke, yet Shichi managed to guess one. The boy is a true prodigy. Between his cultivation talent and his sharp mind, Shichi is truly in a class of his own. They couldn't be happier. They feel a heavy responsibility to guide him. After all, the future glory of the Tai sect now rests on his shoulders. Even the sect leader finally breathes a sigh of relief. He feels much more at ease knowing how clever Shichi is. He reasons that if the boy can recognize must, then the simpler word for no should be a piece of cake. No matter how crooked the puppet's handwriting is, the words do not, combined with his current location, should be enough. Shichi should be able to realize the truth, and if this plan succeeds, the next step will be much easier. Whether it's explaining the sect's situation or guiding him from afar, the elders feel their goals are no longer just a distant fantasy. The sect leader and Yu Xiao feel they've finally succeeded, while Shichi, after watching the puppet several times, uses his powerful imagination to reach a conclusion. He confidently declares that the first word is must, though he admits the rest looks like a tangled chain he can't quite decipher. He's quite proud of himself for guessing 2 words out of a dozen, but he wonders if must practice is a warning not to be lazy. As soon as he says this, the little puppet, which had been drawing circles on the ground, suddenly freezes in its tracks. Inside the Tai realm, the elders are collectively losing their minds. They can't understand how he saw must but missed the not right in front of it. They also wonder why Shichi thinks there are a dozen words when there were only 4. Surely, they tell themselves, it's just a lack of control over the puppet. They turn on poor Zuichimo, demanding to know what he's doing, leaving him feeling utterly defensive as he tries to explain. He points out that the confusion stems from his sudden mid-sentence change, which turned the calligraphy into a cluttered, confusing mess. The elders are momentarily stunned by this explanation, while Su Wuxuan is so frustrated he's practically stomping his feet. He laments that Shichi interpreted the message as must practice, which is, to be honest, the exact opposite of what they intended. Meanwhile, Shichi decides he really can't waste any more time. He's determined to master the 5 moons true form today, no matter what. The moment the elders hear he's about to start practicing again, they become incredibly anxious, and Zuichimo sends a frantic command to the puppet. We see the little Cheonchi shaking its head desperately as a warning, but Shichi just laughs, thinking the little guy is just making sure he doesn't slack off. He tells the puppet not to worry and immediately begins to practice, following his deep understanding of the 5 moons technique. As a powerful aura begins to swirl around him, the elders feel their last bit of hope finally wither away. They fear that this technique will take decades to master, potentially wasting the life of a genius who only appears once in a million years. While the elders watch the situation below with heavy hearts, Lu Daojia suddenly cries out in shock, pointing at Shichi. Shichi has already completed a full cycle of the technique, with fist shadows dancing around him, a feat that confirms his status as a peerless prodigy. Even so, they worry that even with his talent, it will take 10 years to truly master it, leading the sect leader to speak with a heavy tone. The sect leader asks his fellow brothers if there is any other way to stop this. We see them quickly look down, only to find that Shichi hasn't stopped for a single moment, appearing completely immersed in his practice. As the peak masters and Elder Ji watch his serious expression, they feel a sense of total despair, while the disciples inside the Tai realm look equally ashen-faced. Rather than watching a repetitive fist routine, they had hoped to see how fast he could cultivate, but now he seems obsessed with this technique. It feels as though he is stubbornly cutting off his own bright future, leading the true disciples to sigh and whisper about his lack of foresight. Only the Holy Son, Li Zhengyun, is laughing internally, thinking that Shichi is being far too greedy by trying to master a heaven-grade skill on top of everything else. He believes that such greed will only lead to a lower cultivation realm. After all, Shichi is acting like a reckless youth. To be honest, spending 20 years on a single fist technique would leave him with no time to break through the soul-refining realm. Li Jingyun is certain that if Shichi continues like this, he will remain the ultimate winner. But then he hears Lu Daojia's voice filled with confusion. Lu Daojia asks if anyone else has noticed that Shichi's fist momentum is becoming increasingly powerful. Upon hearing this, Su Wuxuan, the peak master of Chuangong Peak, observes closely and exclaims in utter disbelief. It's as if every single round of practice Shichi completes is worth 10,000 rounds for anyone else, a truly baffling development. Once the other elders notice the abnormality, they are forced to agree. In 4,000 years, they have never seen progress this rapid. Shichi's movements are already completely different from his first attempt, a transformation that shouldn't be possible in just a few hours. They begin to wonder if he possesses invincible talent for martial skills as well, but they have no idea about his secret weapon. Deep down, Shichi knew after the first round that this technique was incredibly difficult, even with his natural genius. So, from the second round onward, he smoothly activated his small success voucher, entering a truly miraculous state of mind. He feels as though his experience gain has been infinitely magnified, making him certain he can reach mastery before the sun sets. With that thought in mind, he performs another round, and as time passes, it becomes clear he is on the verge of reaching small success. The disciples of the Tai realm are left completely speechless, watching a skill that takes others decades to master unfold in mere hours. We see that in just a few hours, Shichi has become increasingly proficient with the technique's core principles. The mountain shapes hidden within his fist shadows begin to manifest clearly, until finally, every single strike carries the weight of 10,000 pounds. A powerful aura begins to blanket the entire area. Witnessing this, Su Wuxuan, who has spent half his life teaching disciples, begins to seriously doubt his own reality. To be honest, this level of progress defies every known law of cultivation. It completely shatters common sense, leaving the holy son, Li Jingyun, staring in a daze. He rubs his eyes repeatedly, desperately hoping that what he's seeing is just a hallucination. Unfortunately for him, the gasps of the crowd confirm the truth. Shichi has spent only a single day mastering what should take a lifetime. He is on the verge of reaching small success in a heaven-grade technique in record time. Down on the training field, as he begins the final form of the routine, 5 majestic pillars of fist intent soar into the sky, manifesting as 5 phantom mountains above his head. After a few moments of intense concentration, the energy settles. Shichi pulls back his fist and stands still, the fierce winds around him refusing to dissipate as residual shadows linger. He exhales a long, slow breath, having finally achieved his goal. He has successfully mastered the 5 mountains' true form fist. Looking up, he notices the sky has already begun to darken. He has been practicing since early morning. Exactly 8 hours have passed, and he can't help but feel impressed that the system's promise held true. He really did reach small success in a single day. Just as he prepares to test the true power of the technique, a wave of intense hunger suddenly washes over him. He frowns, realizing his physical limits have been reached. He had been so focused that he nearly forgot he hasn't eaten in 2 days. Ever since the disappearance of the Fist sect, he has been under constant pressure. Driven by the looming threat of the apocalypse and the demands of the system, he has barely had a moment's peace. Between sleeping off his exhaustion and today's training, it has been 3 full days since he last had a drop of water or a bite to eat. To be honest, the only reason he hasn't collapsed yet is his physical cultivation. Having reached the body-tempering realm, his constitution is far beyond that of a normal human. He quickly decides to set aside his training and find something to eat. He knows that only those who reach the Zifu realm can truly transcend the need for food. For those in the body-tempering or soul-refining stages, sustenance is still a necessity. These lower realms require vast amounts of spiritual rice and monster meat to maintain their strength. Without wasting another second, he boards his flying vessel and heads straight for Wanshou Peak. At that moment, little Tai follows him, and Shichi scoops the fellow into his arms as they head for the dining hall. Wanshou Peak is widely considered the best place for a meal within the sect. This is largely because the peak raises a massive number of spiritual beasts. While the gentler creatures are trained as mounts, the more aggressive ones serve as trials for the disciples. Consequently, there is always a fresh supply of meat available. We see that when these spiritual beasts perish, their meat is transformed into exquisite delicacies, making the selection at Wanshou Peak the finest in the entire sect, sometimes even featuring the flesh of high-tier monsters. Shichi makes his way to the high-level cooking area. Here, prices easily reach thousands of contribution points per dish. 3 signature meals made from high-rank beast meat can cost well over 10,000 points. It's a level of luxury that only a few hundred out of 100,000 disciples can actually afford. In the past, as a mere outer disciple, Shichi was lucky to get a bowl of thin porridge and a few scraps of low-grade meat. But now that the sect's leadership is currently missing, he sees no reason to deprive himself. He places his disciple token on the formation stone. He begins ordering with a certain frantic energy, quickly spending 130,000 contribution points as the cooking array springs to life. Half an hour later, 16 dishes and a massive bowl of spiritual rice are laid out before him. Being absolutely famished, Shichi begins his feast. Thanks to the refining power of the Wuji Daozong, he absorbs the spiritual essence of every single bite. He can feel his cultivation base swelling with every mouthful. Meanwhile, high above, the watching disciples are starting to feel rather hungry themselves. One of them shouts out in desperation, offering 100 contribution points for anything to eat, but the response is predictably quiet. To be honest, since these trials usually only last a single day, no one thought to pack a lunch. Even those who happen to have food in their storage bags aren't about to share it now. Seeing the unrest, the lower-level elders of each peak immediately report the situation to the sect leader. It's only then that the sect leader realizes he's forgotten a rather vital detail. His disciples still need to eat. Having long ago transcended the need for food through fasting, he had simply overlooked such a mortal concern. He turns to the other elders. Streams of light fly from his storage ring, manifesting as various rations in midair. Seeing this, the other elders follow suit. They all begin digging through their storage rings for spare supplies. They may not eat anymore, but after thousands of years, they've accumulated quite a hoard. The greatest contribution comes from the master of Wanshou Peak, Tongzhen. The amount of spiritual rice and meat he produces is more than all the other elders combined, enough to feed the disciples for years. This comes as no surprise to the others, as Tongzhen's legendary appetite is famous throughout Zhongzhou. He is, after all, the only one who refuses to fast. We see Shangwan Siyuan looking at the various delicacies floating in the air. Junior brother Tongzhen, he says, you truly never disappoint us. The round and friendly Tongzhen offers a gentle smile. To him, being able to eat is a blessing, and a very useful one at that. The sect leader nods in agreement. Without Tongzhen's hoard, their combined supplies wouldn't have been enough to feed all the disciples. Now, they can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Even if they are trapped in the Tai Jinshu for years, no one will go hungry. However, the mood among the other elders remains heavy. It has been 3 days, and the supreme elders are still completely silent. It seems the Tai Jinshu is facing a genuine crisis. To be honest, being trapped for several years would be an absolute disaster. The sect leader sighs deeply. He realizes they must find a way to establish contact with Shichi, no matter the cost. If they can use Shichi to locate the backup secret realm, their path to freedom would be much simpler. He turns his attention back to our protagonist, only to see that Shichi has already finished his massive meal. But Shichi doesn't look satisfied. He stands up and begins scanning the dining hall, searching for his next target. Tsuchimo, who has let the little Cheonchi rest in Shichi's robes, asks how one man can possibly eat so much. 16 dishes, and he's still hungry? Su Wuxuan suggests the answer lies in the nature of Shichi's unique cultivation method. The Wuji Daozong is, after all, a divine technique born from the fusion of 37 high-tier manuals. The more profound the art, the more energy it requires. Tongzhen agrees, noting that Shichi hasn't eaten in days. After a day of intense training, his body is likely burning through energy faster than he can swallow it. His appetite is truly legendary, but as Tongzhen watches Shichi move, his expression suddenly shifts to one of pure panic. He shouts out in alarm. Shichi is heading for his private storage, where a rare dream carp is currently hidden. Unaware of the elder's panic, Shichi continues his search. He can feel his cultivation nearing the second level of body tempering. He carefully suppresses the breakthrough. However, he knows his body and spirit must reach a natural resonance first. Only then will his physical form be truly enhanced. Until that resonance point is reached, a wise cultivator should. He decided to prioritize tempering his physical strength rather than rushing his cultivation. He estimated his single-arm strength had already surpassed the 20,000 gene threshold. If he could manage just one more meal, he would surely reach the breakthrough point. To do that, he knew he had to consume a high-grade spirit beast. By utilizing the power of the Wuji Daozong, he could then convert that flesh and blood into the physical strength required to advance. His target was the second level of body tempering. As he was calculating his next move, a crisp mechanical chime suddenly echoed in his mind, announcing that it had detected the host's intense craving for a high-quality meal. This triggered a special guidance task. He must prepare and eat a high-grade spirit beast with perfect color, aroma, and taste. The reward for this culinary challenge, naturally, was a purple-grade trait called Make the Most of the Meat.